What happens when a proud noble warrior learns she's carrying a child destined to reshape two civilizations? Welcome to one of the most intriguing moments of our tale, the heart-stopping clash beneath ancient ruins, where, against all odds, a forbidden partnership saves an artifact that holds the key to an entire species' future. Questions of bloodline purity, unbreakable traditions, and the courage to stand against centuries of prejudice all converge on one battlefield. Will two unlikely allies manage to unite their people or tear them apart forever? Stay tuned to hear the full story and find out how one revelation changes everything. If you're captivated by epic showdowns and daring heroes, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring you even more thrilling sagas and hidden lore from across the galaxy. Listen on to discover how our protagonists forge new bonds, challenge time-honored beliefs, and face consequences that could echo for generations to come. Avara Stormborn stood in the polished marble corridor leading to the Council of Elders, her ebony hair cascading over the shoulders of her gleaming ceremonial armor. The Viren embassy on Heliac Station reflected centuries of her people's tradition. Silver-trimmed columns that reached toward vaulted ceilings, etched with mythic depictions of valor and conquest. Avara's silver eyes flicked to the ornate doors at the far end, where she was supposed to meet her new mission partner. She had petitioned for weeks to be assigned to the retrieval of the Keystone Relic, a storied artifact rumored to lie in the ancient ruins of Calyx Verge. Her efforts had finally paid off. The Council had agreed that, as a scholar of old Viren lore, she was an ideal candidate to locate and secure this priceless piece of cultural heritage. Yet her anticipation soured when she noticed who would be accompanying her. Striding down the corridor with an assured gait was Cole Everhart, a human operative employed by the Concord. Despite the advanced polymer plating of his combat gear and the faint scarring along his jaw, he was unmistakably out of place in this bastion of Viren sophistication. Avara regarded him with a measured glance. Humans were the newest allies of the Viren, having only emerged on the galactic stage in the last few centuries. While they had proven their adaptability and robust spirit, they lacked the proud bloodlines the Viren cherished. Avara, coming from the ancient House Stormborn, considered lineage paramount. Everything about Cole, from his shorter height to his minimalist uniform, spoke of a pedigree that was, in her mind, thoroughly unimpressive. "You're Cole Everhart?" she asked, her voice tinged with skepticism. He answered with a curt nod, a subtle smile playing on his lips. "Operative Everhart, Concord Special Tactics." With a barely concealed grin, he extended his hand in a universal gesture that many Viren found oddly informal. "Looks like we're on this assignment together." Avara stared at his hand for a second before clasping her arms behind her back, an intentional snub. "I am Lady Avara Stormborn," she replied, tipping her chin upward in a show of Viren pride. "I have heard of your impressive track record." The last words dripped with irony. Yes, humans were known for unpredictable cunning, but it rankled her that the Council had found no better candidate among her own kind. Cole let his hand drop. "The Council of Elders read my dossier," he said without missing a beat. "They must have liked what they saw." Before Avara could retort, the ornate double doors at the end of the corridor slid open to reveal Chancellor Moran, head of the Council of Elders, flanked by two royal guards. The Chancellor's cloak of state, embroidered with golden threads and geometric patterns, brushed the floor as he beckoned them forward. Avara walked in first, ignoring Cole's attempt at letting her pass. Despite the tension, she was singularly focused on the mission, even as a voice in the back of her mind railed against the indignity of pairing with an upstart from an unremarkable lineage. The Council's chambers opened up into a domed hall, illuminated by shifting orbs of light that glided along frescoes depicting legendary Viren explorers. Avara had stood in these halls before, but she felt a renewed sense of awe each time she saw the swirling motifs overhead. Behind a crescent-shaped table sat Chancellor Moran and four other counselors. Their expressions ranged from stern to thoughtful as they regarded the two arrivals. Avara bowed deeply in the traditional Viren manner, placing one hand over her heart and lowering her head. Cole offered a brief nod, foregoing the elaborate gesture. Avara suppressed a grimace. How dare he be so casual in this sacred place? Every nerve in her body bristled at the breezy confidence radiating from the human. Lady Stormborn, Operative Everhart, Chancellor Moran intoned, his voice resonant against the walls. We have grave news from Calyx Verge. Hostile forces have been detected near the ruined crown, an ancient Viren temple complex that possibly shelters the Keystone Relic. That relic must not fall into the hands of scavengers or criminals. Cole nodded, crossing his arms. Then we need to move fast. Avara clenched her jaw. Chancellor, with respect, why not dispatch an elite Viren team? Why rely on external assistance? She tried to keep her tone measured, but a hint of her displeasure leaked through. Because the Concord has resources we do not, Moran replied pointedly. Their advanced infiltration technology and skilled operatives complement our expertise in deciphering ancient sites. He paused, looking at each of them in turn. And because House Stormborn has a legendary affinity for Viren lore, while Operative Everhart brings innovative tactics that may prove vital. Chancellor, one counselor said in a carefully measured tone, the ruined crown has withstood millennia of secrecy. We do not know its defenses. It would be foolhardy to dismiss Everhart's record. Humans adapt. Avara swallowed her argument, though it burned on her tongue. Adaptation was precisely what had propelled the humans so quickly into galactic recognition from what she had read. They borrowed, integrated, and sometimes improved upon ideas at a pace many older species found jarring. Still, she resented that her lineage and expertise, her years of training and devotion, were apparently not enough on their own. Any additional intelligence? Cole asked, placing a casual hand on the hilt of his sidearm. Number of enemy combatants, known species? Chancellor Moran's eyes flicked across a small projector screen on the table. We believe these raiders number in the dozens, heavily armed. They have no known affiliation but possess enough cunning to bypass standard security grids. You will both depart tonight for Starpoint Bastion, where a Concord frigate waits to transport you to Calyx Verge. Cole gave a brief nod and turned to Avara as though the matter was settled. After you, then, he said, gesturing toward the exit. She ignored the courtesy, pivoting sharply on her heel to follow the Chancellor out. Sparks of anger and anticipation coalesced in her chest. She told herself that she only cared about reclaiming the Keystone Relic for her people. But as she glanced at Cole, still unruffled, still brimming with that easy self-assurance, her pride prickled anew, fueling a potent mixture of rivalry and curiosity that she couldn't entirely dismiss. Hours later, Avara found herself staring out a wide viewport aboard the Silver Crest, an elegant Viren shuttle that ferried her and Cole to Starpoint Bastion. The station was a colossal ring of metal and glass suspended against the backdrop of distant stars, each docking bay lit like a petal in a blossoming cosmic flower. Human ingenuity combined with Viren aesthetics had given it a distinctive look. Smooth, aerodynamic corridors branching from a central hub that glowed with soft, violet luminescence. As the shuttle glided into the designated berth, Avara felt a shift in gravity accompanied by the subtle hiss of pressurized air. The docking clamps engaged, and the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, granting them permission to disembark. Cole stood from his seat opposite hers, rolling his shoulders and checking the readiness of his sidearm with practiced ease. Avara couldn't help but notice the toned efficiency in his movements, too pragmatic for the lavish style taught at Viren academies. She descended the shuttle ramp first, scanning the bustle of the hangar. Engineers in baggy coveralls scurried to maintain starships of various origins, from Viren corvettes to a bulky Dravek freighter. Cole stepped beside her, inhaling the air with an appreciative nod. Feels good to be on solid ground. Well, somewhat, he remarked. I've been out on deep space postings a bit too long. She barely acknowledged his comment, already focusing on her next objective. Collecting clearance codes was on my end, finalizing mission data and ensuring the Keystone Relic's significance was properly noted. Not a single detail could be left to chance. Her father, Grand Lord Arius Stormborn, had taught her that the Viren's proud heritage required unyielding vigilance. The station's main concourse was a swirl of diverse species, tall, draconic Dravek mercenaries, lithe, purple-skinned Theri traders, and a fair number of humans in Concord uniforms, each wearing an expression of calm alertness. Cole pointed out a corridor lined with neon guide paths, That way leads to the Concord command post. We'll want to check in. I can manage that, Avura replied, her tone clipped. I don't need a human to show me the way. Instead of bristling, Cole merely shrugged. As you wish, Lady Stormborn. I'm here to support you. She shot him a swift glare, uncertain if he was taunting her or simply stating a fact. As they neared the bustling command center, a lieutenant in Concord attire approached, saluting Cole and offering a polite but respectful nod to Avara. Within moments, they were ushered to a private briefing room, a circular space dominated by a holographic table that displayed a rotating 3D projection of Calyx Verge. The planet's surface had wide stretches of rock, dotted with geometric structures that glowed faintly in the night, residues of an ancient Viren energy grid. The ruined crown lay at the center of a basin, partially concealed by towering canyons. From what the scans revealed, it was a labyrinth of collapsed corridors, towering columns, and hidden crypts. Avara felt a spike of excitement. This was her life's work, unraveling secrets from Viren antiquity. Calyx Verge, the lieutenant explained, pointing to various markers on the projection, has been claimed by criminals who plunder the ruins for artifacts. Local reports say these scavengers are ruthless and well-supplied. They've likely set up a perimeter around the ruined crown. Cole leaned over the display. We'll need a small strike team, or we risk scaring them underground. A covert approach might work best. Slip in, recover the keystone relic, and vanish. Avara curled her lip, not bothering to hide her doubt. You make it sound easy. The ruined crown is more than a simple ruin. Ancient Viren architects wove living energy conduits through stone. We'll face labyrinthine corridors, not to mention hidden wards that can detect intruders of lesser bloodlines. Lesser bloodlines? Cole asked, raising an eyebrow. She turned pointedly to him. Viren wards often respond to one's lineage, scanning for the genetic markers of recognized houses. It's a long-standing tradition meant to protect relics and sacred sites from outsiders. She folded her arms. Which means you'll be at a disadvantage. The lieutenant cleared his throat diplomatically. We do have advanced scanners that can help us navigate some wards, but it's true that certain old technologies respond best to a direct genetic match. Cole gave a short laugh. So you're saying I'm going to trip every alarm in that place? Avara's eyes narrowed. Unless we keep you close to someone with the correct credentials, namely me. An awkward silence hung in the air. The lieutenant busied himself with the hologram, adding layers of topographical data. Cole kept his gaze on Avara, unflinching. She expected anger or frustration, but all she saw was that quiet confidence again. An intriguing calmness that seemed to say, I've faced worse than ancient Viren wards. Then I'll do my best to stay by your side, Lady Stormborn, Cole said eventually, inclining his head in a gesture that might have been mocking or genuine respect. She couldn't decide which it was, and that unsettled her far more than if he had challenged her outright. Moments later, the hologram flickered off. The briefing concluded. The lieutenant handed them both a data crystal containing mission protocols. We've arranged for you to depart on the Talara's Wing, a Concord frigate. It's stationed at Dock E Safe Travels, and I mean it. We've lost too many good people down there already. Avara nodded and moved to leave, but Cole stopped to thank the lieutenant personally. She paused just outside the briefing room and watched, grudgingly impressed by his diplomacy. Though a small part of her insisted it was an act, she found no sign of deceit. When Cole finally joined her, their gazes locked briefly. She turned away, heading back through the swirling crowds of the concourse. Every step reminded her that she was about to risk her life and her pride alongside a human she didn't trust. The Talara's Wing was sleek and utilitarian, painted in the muted grays of Concord's Special Operations Fleet. Inside its quarters, functional lighting and simple steel bulkheads contrasted sharply with the ornate environs Avara was used to in Viren vessels. She had grown up on House Stormborn's private cruiser, surrounded by lush carpets and elaborate carvings that showcased her family's storied past. Here, everything was about efficiency, each piece of equipment stored in recessed lockers, every door labeled with luminous signage. Cole escorted her to their shared cabin, a modest arrangement with 2 bunks, a compact table, and minimal personal space. You can take the upper bunk, he said with a faint smile as he deposited his pack on the lower bed. If that meets your standards, my lady. She scowled. It will suffice. The council had made it clear. They would travel as a team. No private suite for Avara this time. She tried to tell herself that a more austere environment was simply part of the mission. Yet the disrespect implied by such cramped quarters gnawed at her. Once she'd stowed her belongings, Avara made her way to the frigate's observation deck. Through the reinforced window, she could see Starpoint bastions shrinking behind them. Distant suns spread their light across the starfield. The swirling cosmos never failed to stir something in her, a longing that drew her away from the comforts of home and into the unknown. She sensed Cole's approach before he spoke. His presence disrupted the carefully poised air around her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said, settling beside her. "Every Viren child grows up with stories of cosmic grandeur," she replied evenly. "It's our birthright to wander the stars." Cole leaned against the railing, eyes reflecting starlight. "We humans had to work for it, you know. We don't have your centuries of tradition, but we made up for lost time." He paused as if choosing his words carefully. "You despise us for that, don't you?" She turned to face him, silver eyes narrowing. "I do not despise you, Cole Everhart. I simply question the wisdom of placing an untested species beside the greatest civilization the galaxy has known." A moment of quiet settled, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's engines. Then Cole chuckled softly. "You might be surprised how tested we really are. The Concorde tries to keep the worst from overshadowing first impressions, but humanity's story is full of conflict, survival, and triumph against impossible odds." Avara's gaze returned to the viewport. She wanted to ignore him, to cling to the certainty she had known all her life. But something in his tone, an undertone of earned experience, pricked at her curiosity. Could it be that the human's no pedigree was, in itself, a form of resilience? She let the question linger in her mind as the frigate entered faster than light travel. Stars became smears of luminescence. The mission ahead loomed large, not just because of the dangers on Calyx Verge, but because she had a nagging feeling that partnering with this human would change more than her opinions about bloodlines. The journey to Calyx Verge took just under a day, thanks to Concorde's advanced slipstream drive. Though less luxurious than Viren starships, the frigate was fast and reliable, slicing through the cosmic void with unwavering determination. Avara spent much of the time in the ship's small library module, poring over historical data regarding the ruined crown. She cross-referenced architectural sketches, old runic translations, and personal accounts from explorers who'd ventured there decades earlier. She forced herself to focus on the mission at hand. It wasn't easy. Ever since they'd left Starpoint Bastion, her mind kept drifting back to her uneasy alliance with Cole. She felt a simmering tension in her chest, a mix of annoyance and something else she refused to name. To her mild irritation, Cole proved unexpectedly resourceful. He requested every bit of data she had on the ancient site and spent hours combing through it, occasionally asking pointed questions about the layout, the traps, or the protective wards rumored to linger in the temple. Unlike many humans she had met, those who either approached Viren culture with naive wonder or dismissive arrogance, Cole approached the subject with genuine curiosity and practicality. "We know the main entry to the temple was sealed after a cataclysmic event centuries ago," he noted, leaning over a digital map. "The old texts mention hidden passages. Any idea how to identify them on modern sensors?" Avara tapped a section of the map. "There should be seams in the stone, barely detectable except by scanning for residual synergy fields. Viren stone carvers often left subtle clues carved into supporting pillars, shapes that align with the stars." Cole nodded thoughtfully. "And the wards? You said they are keyed to Viren lineages. Will they see me as a threat?" Her lips curved in a faint, involuntary smirk. "Almost certainly. Unless you remain physically close to a recognized bloodline, the wards will interpret you as an invader. That means you won't wander off on your own." "Got it. Stick to my partner like glue," he said, sporting a half grin that made her bristle. She quickly redirected her attention to the map, refusing to dwell on why his irreverent humor made her heart skip half a beat. They were still working through the data when the ship-wide comms signaled their imminent drop from Slipstream. Avara packed her research away and followed Cole to the bridge. Through the reinforced windows, the swirling starfield resolved back into singular points of light, and Calyx Verge came into view. A gray-brown planet streaked with canyons, partially cloaked by dusty clouds. Captain Raoul, a stern-faced Concord officer, guided the frigate into orbit. Satellite sweeps show multiple heat signatures around the ruined crown. He informed them, "Looks like your raiders are busy. We'll land you two some distance away to avoid detection." Avara nodded in agreement. The last thing she wanted was to risk the Keystone relic in a direct firefight. Behind her, Cole double-checked his gear, a multi-phase blaster, grappling line, and a short, curved blade strapped to his thigh. She couldn't help but think how ill-suited humans looked with such tools, so unlike the Virans' graceful, jewel-encrusted weaponry. Still, she reminded herself that function, not form, was often humanity's strong suit. Their landing site was a rocky plateau overlooking the basin where the ruined crown lay. Thin, dust-laden air swept across the planet's surface, tugging at Avara's robes. She made a quick assessment of the environment. Mild oxygen levels, slightly lower than standard Viran norms, but within tolerable range. Silently, she thanked the adaptive respirator integrated into her armor's collar. Cole took point, scanning the horizon with a small handheld device. "Signals confirm multiple life signs in the basin. We should move carefully. These raiders likely have perimeter scouts." Avara swept her gaze across the landscape. Ancient spires and broken arches jutted from the ground like skeletal remains of a lost civilization. In the distance, the ruined crown's central edifice glimmered with the faintest hint of active synergy fields. She felt a ripple of anticipation. This temple was part of her heritage, her birthright, and she intended to see it restored and protected. Under the cover of rocky outcroppings, they made their way down the plateau. The air tasted of metal and stagnant dryness. Now and then, a distant rumble echoed from the canyon walls, possibly the noise of the raiders excavating or blasting sealed doorways. Avara's chest tightened in anger at the thought of them trampling on sacred ground for profit. They paused at a shallow ravine, where Cole motioned for silence. He had spotted two armed sentinels standing watch near a path strewn with rubble. Humans, from their silhouette, possibly in patched body armor. They appeared bored, but their weapons looked lethal enough. Avara considered a direct confrontation. Viran warriors were taught to face challenges head-on, but Cole shook his head. "We need to preserve the element of surprise. Let's skirt around them." She raised an eyebrow. "Running away?" A faint grin tugged at his lips. "Avoiding a pointless firefight. There'll be tougher security ahead. Let's not announce our presence." His strategy was sound, and though it chafed her pride, she acquiesced. Carefully, they sidestepped the sentinels, navigating jagged terrain until they reached a massive fragment of a collapsed archway that offered them cover. As they drew closer to the ruined crown, Avara felt a subtle thrum beneath her feet, a sign that some ancient Viran energy was still active. Beyond a shattered gateway, the temple's entrance yawned, half blocked by debris. Portions of the structure shimmered with residual synergy patterns, and even through the dust, Avara could see the carvings that identified it as a place of great spiritual significance. Her pulse quickened. She had read about these markings since childhood, but to see them in person was an entirely different experience. Cole came up beside her, carefully scanning for booby traps. "We go in together," he reminded her softly. "If these wards do what you say, I'll need to stay close." Avara gave a curt nod. "I'll lead. Keep your distance from any inscriptions that glow red. It means they're set to repel outsiders." With that, they slipped into the temple's shadows. The ancient stone corridors beckoned, each step carrying them deeper into the hidden heart of a legacy Avara had been raised to revere. And for the first time, she was walking its path in the company of someone from beyond her treasured pedigree. A flicker of faint, azure light danced across the temple's broken walls, guiding Avara and Cole into the darkened corridors of the ruined crown. Even in its ruined state, the passageway bore evidence of the architectural genius her ancestors once wielded. Twisting pillars carved with geometric sigils, faint inscriptions etched into the floor, and walls embedded with long-dead energy conduits. Where the synergy field still had some residual power, the carvings glowed softly in shifting patterns. Avara pressed her palm against a portion of the wall, noting the slight hum beneath her gloved hand. This was living history, the synergy-laced stone responding to her bloodline. She felt a swell of pride and, unbidden, a pang of worry over whether the presence of a human would tarnish this sacred site. She turned to Cole, who stood quietly beside her. His scanning device cast a soft beam over the intricate artwork. "Nothing's moving nearby," he murmured, eyes narrowed in concentration. "But the next chamber looks more active. Some readings are spiking." Avara nodded, guiding him further into the interior. The ceiling was low in places, forcing them to duck under collapsed arches. Loose rubble shifted beneath their boots. At times, they stopped to listen for the faint echoes of the raiders' presence. Every so often, the quiet settled again, as if the ruin itself breathed a sigh of relief that its true heirs had returned. She caught Cole studying the runic inscriptions that crowned each portal they passed. "Fascinated?" she asked, fighting the urge to sound condescending. He shrugged. "Your ancestors were clearly advanced. Biological skins, synergy-based traps, pretty complex stuff. Humanity never had anything like this in its ancient ruins. Ours are mostly stone and bone." The comment gave her pause. For all her talk about lesser lineages, she had never considered what humans lacked in their ancestral past. The Viren boasted eons of curated power and tradition. Humans, on the other hand, had advanced in astonishing ways despite their comparatively short timeline. Perhaps, she allowed herself to think, there is some resilience in them that we don't yet understand. They arrived at a pair of monumental doors etched with swirling patterns. Avara rested her hand on the center, and the synergy responded to her Viren markers with a dull glow. The doors slid halfway open before groaning to a halt. Through the gap, she could see the interior of what she guessed was a minor antechamber. The rest was enshrouded in darkness. She motioned for Cole to follow closely. As they stepped over the threshold, she felt an abrupt shift in the air, an almost electric tension. Her armor prickled, and a circle of runic glyphs flared on the floor beneath Cole's feet. Instinctively, Avara reached for his arm, tugging him onto a section of the floor that glowed with a gentler light. The ward's initial hostility receded, though she could still feel the ruin's ancient system bristling at the foreign genetic signature in their midst. "Stay beside me," she instructed, firmly, her voice echoing softly against the arched ceiling. "The wards are searching for my lineage to vouch for your presence. If you stray even a few steps, they may lock on to you and trigger a more lethal defense." Cole pressed his lips together. "Understood," he said, giving a slow exhale. He seemed unfazed by the close call, which surprised her. She guessed that any other off-worlder might have panicked. Instead, he watched the swirling glyphs with cool interest, reminding her yet again that the normal rules of Viren pride and condescension might not apply to him. They crept deeper into the antechamber, scanning the carvings for clues to the Keystone Relic's location. At intervals, they heard distant crashes and muffled voices from somewhere else in the temple, evidence that the raiders, too, were pressing forward. Avara clenched her jaw. They needed to find the relic first, or everything her ancestors had preserved across centuries would be at risk. Beyond the antechamber lay a low passage that seemed to spiral downward. The air carried a mineral tang, layered with the faint scent of something ancient and resonant, like ozone after a lightning storm. The synergy's presence was stronger here, making the carved symbols on the walls flicker in a pulsing rhythm. Now and then, Avara felt a gentle tingle beneath her feet, as though the entire structure acknowledged her. She couldn't shake the contradictory emotions warring inside her, a fierce possessiveness toward her people's heritage, and an unwilling recognition that Cole's calm efficiency was steadily earning her respect. Falling into a tight formation, they moved slowly, mindful of traps or weakened floors. Occasional sparks jumped between defunct nodes set into the ceiling, vestiges of security mechanisms from a lost epoch. Avara suspected that if these systems were fully active, intruders would never have made it this far. But centuries of neglect had taken their toll on the ruined crown. She and Cole paused at a crumbling archway sealed by a barrier of translucent energy. Swirling filaments coursed through the barrier, glowing the same shade of blue as the runes that responded to her touch. Only a true-blooded Viren from a recognized noble house could pass. Avara steeled herself, pressing a hand against a sigil at the barrier's edge. It flickered, then began to dissipate. "Hold on," Cole whispered, raising a hand, hearing something. She stilled, focusing. Yes, footsteps, voices. The raiders must have discovered another route into the next chamber. Avara quickly finished disengaging the barrier, and it vanished with a soft hum. She ducked inside, Cole close behind, scanning the gloom for any sign of movement. The chamber beyond opened into a wide hall where half-broken statues lined the walls, depictions of venerable Viren figures. Some statues were missing limbs, others toppled by the ravages of time or earlier incursions. In the center of the hall sat a broad pedestal surrounded by swirling inscriptions. Avara recognized references to the Stormborn line and to the relic's protective wards. Her pulse quickened. They were close to the keystone. The knowledge felt both exhilarating and sobering. A scattering of debris clued them into the raiders' presence. One portion of the floor had recently been pried open, as though someone was probing for hidden compartments. Avara clenched her fists, anger flaring at the desecration. Cole's gaze darted around, searching for threats. "They can't have gone far," he muttered. "Keep your guard up." Together they edged toward a half-collapsed archway. Faint beams of artificial light danced beyond, likely from the raiders' equipment, and then abruptly they heard a shout, followed by a burst of erratic gunfire. Explosive echoes ricocheted off the ancient stone. Cole pulled Avara in to cover behind a fallen column. "Not sure if they're shooting at each other or if they've tripped a temple defense," he said grimly. "Either way, we need to move carefully." Adrenaline surged through Avara's veins. Part of her wanted to charge ahead and defend her ancestral site, but she forced herself to trust Cole's instincts. Their best chance was stealth and precision, not hot-blooded bravado. If they drew too much attention, the relic could be damaged, or worse, spirited away by these vandals. They circled around, hugging the shadows. The hall branched into two corridors, but the sporadic strobe of gunfire illuminated the right-hand path. Avara pointed left, and Cole nodded. They pressed on, the synergy lights glowing faintly in her presence. She felt him close behind, steady, focused. She realized with uneasy wonder that she felt safer with him at her back than she had with many full-blooded Viren warriors. They emerged into a vestibule that had partially collapsed, revealing a gaping hole in the floor. Far below lay a network of catacombs, likely older than the temple itself. Avara could taste the dust in the air, thick with the dryness of centuries. The synergy conduits seemed sparser here, but she could see a faint glow coming from the depths. "We could try another route," Cole suggested, peering over the edge. "But from the layout we've seen, the relic chamber might be down there." Avara recalled the references she had studied before departing. Many legends indicated that the keystone relic was housed in a sealed crypt, not at ground level, but beneath it. "Yes," she agreed, "it's possible we're right above it." Without another word, she activated the collapsible rappel line attached to her armor's waist. Cole did the same, hooking the line to a segment of stable floor. They exchanged a glance, no small talk needed, and eased themselves over the edge, descending into the darkness. The air grew cooler as they lowered themselves into a sublevel corridor. Here, the stone bore more archaic inscriptions, far more detailed and meticulous than any in the upper halls. Avara recognized stylized renditions of her house's insignia. One panel depicted a figure holding a luminous crystal, a clue perhaps to the relic's nature. She'd been told it was a matrix of synergy, capable of harmonizing with particular genetic lines to unlock hidden powers. Cole landed softly beside her, scanning the area with a small device that beeped in short bursts. "I'm picking up heat traces further in. At least 3 or 4 people," he said. "We'll need to." A rattle echoed from behind them, and they whirled to see a figure stepping from the shadows. One of the raiders, face obscured by a worn rebreather mask, brandishing a battered energy rifle. The muzzle glowed menacingly as he barked something in a coarse dialect neither Avara nor Cole immediately recognized. Instinct seized Avara. She lunged, twisting sideways to avoid the weapon's muzzle, and struck the raider's arm. The blast discharged uselessly into the ceiling. Cole charged in tandem, hooking an arm around the raider's torso and bringing him down with a thud that rattled the ancient floor. The combined maneuver was over in seconds, a smooth synergy of her graceful martial training and his raw, efficient strength. The raider groaned, pinned beneath Cole's knee. Avara pulled the mask off. He was human, with a scarred face and wild eyes. He spat something, curses more than words. Then, incredibly, he grinned through broken teeth. "We've already found it, you know," he taunted in a raspy voice. "You're too late." Avara's heart pounded. "Lies," she hissed, but a knot of dread formed in her gut. Had they truly beaten her here? She glanced at Cole, whose expression darkened. He pressed the muzzle of his blaster against the raider's chest. "What do you mean? Speak clearly." The man coughed out a laugh. "My boss, she's got it. The rest are on their way to meet her. You can kill me, but you won't stop them. Best you can do is run." Fury and panic warred inside Avara. She could feel the synergy fields around her responding, the runes near her feet brightening. With a sharp breath, she forced her composure. "The relic can't be activated by outsiders," she insisted, though her voice trembled slightly. "There are wards, bloodline wards." His grin widened into something unhinged. "She's not from your fancy lineage, but she's got ways of breaking locks. The highest bidder always finds a method." Cole's fingers tightened on his weapon. For a moment, it seemed he might pull the trigger. Then he exhaled slowly and glanced at Avara. "We need to move. He's useless now." She nodded sharply. They left the raider bound and unconscious. Her mind churned with questions. She prayed the wards would hold until she arrived to override any tampering. If the relic fell into the wrong hands, the consequences could reverberate far beyond Calyx's verge. Advancing deeper into the catacombs, they encountered more signs of forced entry, scorch marks where energy charges had blown apart sealed doorways, footprints in the dust leading to corridors that had lain undisturbed for centuries. With each step, Avara's anger at the violation of her ancestral heritage intensified. She found it oddly comforting that Cole wore a similarly grim expression, as though sharing her indignation at this defilement. Before long, they heard murmuring voices and saw the glow of electric lanterns bobbing ahead. Avara motioned for caution. Together, they moved into a side corridor, peeking around to observe a group of raiders gathered in a small antechamber. At their center stood a woman wearing angular body armor, her hair cropped short and streaked with platinum. She held a small device in one hand, a kind of synergy disruptor, if Avara recognized the make correctly, and barked orders at a pair of subordinates. Beside this woman lay a shattered ornamental door, clearly once sealed by powerful wards. The synergy lines around it flickered erratically, half broken. The sight made Avara's stomach churn. These people had almost certainly forced their way into the relic's sanctum. Cole edged closer and whispered, "You see the relic anywhere?" Avara scanned the chamber. The pedestal beyond the broken door was empty. Dread sank into her. If the pedestal was empty, the relic must already be in their possession. She could scarcely believe it, but the woman's triumphant stance suggested it was so. A burst of triumphant laughter from the lead raider cemented her suspicion. "This fancy rock is going to make us rich," the woman crowed, raising a shimmering crystal matrix, no bigger than a clenched fist. Even from their hidden vantage, Avara could sense its latent power. It was the keystone. Her heart clenched. Cole studied the room. "About 6 raiders," he murmured. "They're armed and might have that synergy disruptor keyed to us if we make a direct assault, but we can't let them leave with that relic." Avara bit her lip, adrenaline pulsing in her veins. "They've cracked the wards. If they escape into open space, no telling who might pay for the relic's energies." She glanced at the matrix again, noticing faint pulses of color that echoed the synergy lines in the walls. A surge of protectiveness washed over her. This wasn't just a prized artifact. It was a key piece of Viran heritage, something that might connect all the ancient secrets her house had guarded for generations. Her gaze flicked to Cole. She recalled how well they fought together, a synergy of methods. She swallowed her pride. "We take them down," she said quietly, "together." He nodded, expression intent. "I'll draw their fire from the left. You come in from the right with that fancy agility of yours. Focus on the leader. She's got the relic." Avara bristled at the offhand remark about her fancy agility, but let it slide. Their plan needed to be swift and lethal. She reached for the slender, double-edged blade sheathed at her hip, an heirloom from House Stormborn. The synergy runes along its hilt flickered at her touch, a good omen for what was to come. They shared a final look, then split in opposite directions around the shattered doorway, each stepping lightly between the fallen stones and broken pillars. The raiders remained unaware, their attention on the artifact and on rummaging through ancient chests stacked against the far wall. Cole opened the assault with a flash grenade, tossing it into the antechamber from his concealed position. A deafening pop and blinding light erupted, illuminating the raiders and making them stagger back with disoriented shouts. In those precious seconds, he charged in, his blaster sending precise bolts into the legs and arms of two raiders before they could recover. Avara burst in from the other side, her blade singing through the dust-laden air. With swift, graceful motions, she disarmed the nearest gunman. Her foot lashed out in a spinning kick that sent another raider's weapon clattering across the floor. She felt the synergy lines of the ruin pulse at her heartbeat's tempo. She was fighting on sacred ground, and the temple seemed to welcome her efforts. Cursing, the platinum-haired leader shielded her eyes, the keystone still clutched in her left hand. Cole's next shot sizzled past, scorching the stone mere centimeters from her feet. She ducked, rolling behind a fractured statue as her subordinates fired back in a desperate frenzy. Blaster bolts ricocheted off the walls, some lodging in the ancient stone, others fizzing through the haze of dust. Avara pressed low behind a toppled column, locking eyes with Cole across the room. She gestured silently. They needed to pin the leader down. He nodded, shifting position to flank her. In unspoken coordination, they advanced. Avara vaulted over a broken pedestal, slashing her blade in a fluid arc to disarm another raider. Cole rushed in from the opposite side, delivering a stunning blow to the man's temple with the butt of his blaster. In seconds, only the leader remained standing, brandishing a sidearm and the synergy disruptor. With a snarl, the woman flicked a switch on the disruptor, sending a wave of crackling static through the air. Avara's blade sparked violently, nearly slipping from her grip. The synergy lines in the walls dimmed in a wave of feedback, and she felt a jolt in her chest, like an internal static shock. Cole staggered, cursing under his breath. "Such a prized artifact," the woman hissed. "I'll break it before I let you have it." Avara's heart leapt to her throat. "No," she cried, lunging forward. She lashed out with her blade, trying to knock the disruptor from the raider's grasp. The woman sidestepped, but not quite fast enough. Avara's blade caught the device, slicing through part of its casing. Sparks and arcs of blue electricity spat out. Cole took the opening. He fired a single blaster bolt that grazed the raider's shoulder. She let out a guttural scream, dropping the synergy disruptor. It clattered to the floor, still hissing with residual charge. In a desperate bid, the leader tried to raise the keystone, as if to use it as a shield. But Avara lashed out again, and with a well-placed strike, forced the artifact out of the woman's grasp. The keystone tumbled to the floor and skittered a few meters away, coming to rest against a broken statue base. For an instant, it flared brightly, as though reacting to Avara's presence. Heart pounding, she dove to reclaim it. But the platinum-haired raider wasn't finished. Despite her injuries, she lunged, body-checking Avara and sending them both crashing into a dusty alcove. Cole shouted and hurried to assist, but the woman hissed a command into a wrist communicator. Avara caught a glimpse of additional armed raiders entering the corridor behind them. The situation was on the verge of spiraling out of control. The new wave of raiders opened fire, forcing Cole to retreat behind a section of fallen masonry. Stray bolts whined overhead. Meanwhile, Avara struggled beneath the platinum-haired woman's grip, her breath knocked out from the impact. The raider pinned her sword arm against the wall and brought a knee up, trying to immobilize her. "You think you can keep this for yourself?" the raider hissed, spittle flying. "I've got buyers waiting a sector away, people with deeper pockets than any Viran noble." Avara spat back her own words, voice shaking with fury. "The keystone belongs to my house, and to all Viran. You and your profiteers have no right." With a sharp twist, she freed her arm enough to smash the pommel of her blade into the raider's temple. The woman's grip slackened, and Avara squirmed free, gasping for air. She scooped up the blade and swung around, catching the leader in the side. The raider crumpled, cursing through gritted teeth. Sucking in lungfuls of the dusty air, Avara pushed herself upright. Her eyes darted toward the keystone, lying a short distance away. She could practically feel its energy. But more raiders were pouring in, drawn by the skirmish. Any moment now, they might overwhelm Cole's position. She spotted Cole laying down, covering fire near the corridor, pinning 3 or 4 newcomers behind a shattered pillar. The synergy lines had partially recovered from the disruptor's blast, though they still flickered ominously, as if the temple itself was uncertain how to react. In those pulses of blue, she saw Cole's determined face, jaw set, sweat beading at his brow. He'd come here for a mission, but the look in his eyes suggested it was more than just a job for him now. "We can't hold them all," he yelled over the din. "Grab the relic!" She lunged toward the keystone, just as a stray blaster bolt sizzled by, scorching the stone floor. Snatching the crystal matrix up in her free hand, she felt a jolt of pure resonance surge through her, so abrupt that she nearly stumbled. The keystone's glow intensified, pulsing in sync with her racing heartbeat. It felt warm, almost alive, responding to her Viren lineage. One of the raiders, braver than the rest, rushed forward, firing wild shots that forced Avara to duck. Her ancestral blade snapped up in a defensive parry, deflecting at least one bolt. A second shot grazed her shoulder plating, sending sparks dancing. She cried out in pain, the heat searing against her armor. In that moment, a wave of rage and protectiveness flared in her chest, magnified by the keystone's energy. She poured her focus into the synergy lines, channeling her right as a stormborn descendant. A shimmering barrier flickered into existence around her, absorbing the next volley of shots. Eyes wide with awe, the raider stumbled backward. Cole took advantage of the opening. He advanced swiftly, his blaster aimed with steady precision. In 2 quick bursts, he neutralized the last of the immediate threats. Smoke curled upward from the cracked floors. The platinum-haired leader was still lying on the ground, semi-conscious, while her cohorts either lay incapacitated or had fled into the labyrinth of corridors. Panting, Avara steadied herself against a fallen statue. The keystone's glow subsided to a gentle throb, as though it too needed to recover from the surge. Cole rushed to her side, checking her shoulder wound. "You're hurt," he said, voice filled with concern. "Looks like the armor took the worst of it, but we need to treat it soon." She nodded, her legs wobbly from the clash. Carefully, she cradled the keystone, relief flooding her as she confirmed no visible damage. The ancient artifact still thrummed with potential. All around them, the ruined synergy conduits flickered with renewed vigor, as if welcoming its rightful bearer. Though the raiders had been driven off or incapacitated for the moment, Avara and Cole knew their time was short. Sooner or later, reinforcements might arrive, or the battered temple itself could collapse under the strain of repeated firefights. Avara signaled for Cole to follow her out of the antechamber, limping slightly from the impact of the scuffle. They retraced their path through the catacombs with swift urgency, guided by the synergy lines that reacted to Avara's presence. She clutched the keystone close, feeling its warmth radiate through her armor. It was as though the artifact was forging a new bond with her, one that might grant House Stormborn fresh power or reveal secrets lost across generations. Cole's expression remained vigilant, but also quietly reflective. When they stopped to take stock of the corridors, he asked, "You felt something back there, didn't you? Like the temple's energy came alive for you?" She took a moment to catch her breath, glancing at the flickering runes. "Yes, the keystone responded to my bloodline. I think it might be connected to more than just security protocols. It could be a blueprint for genetic potential, a nexus that ties lineage to synergy. The old texts hinted at that, but we never had living proof." He exhaled slowly, studying her face. "If that's true, it means your people had the means to shape bloodlines, and maybe your entire civilization, through synergy." Avara thought of the Council of Elders back on Heliac Station, of their obsession with preserving pure Viren bloodlines, and how they might react to such revelations. Would they embrace the idea that true strength lay not simply in genealogical purity, but in bridging differences? Or would they cling to tradition, burying the keystone's implications out of fear? They finally reached the rope line and ascended into the upper corridors, mindful of fresh danger at every turn. But no further raiders emerged, and the temple's wards had grown more cooperative, as if the keystone's presence with a rightful bearer was enough to quell some of the deeper defenses. The synergy lines did not flare in hostility when Cole stepped near them. Instead, they seemed to regard him with tentative acceptance. perhaps simply because he was at Avera's side. Rushing through the now familiar antechambers, they stepped into sunlight, or what passed for it on this dusty planet. Outside, the battered plateau and canyons stretched before them. They could see the Tellerer's wing in the distance, still on the rocky ledge where they had landed. A few leftover raiders from the perimeter watch lurked, but the pair's determination was bolstered by recent victory. Within minutes, they'd broken through, blaster fire and blade strikes driving the outlaws to scatter in confusion. As they approached the frigate's open loading ramp, Cole placed a hand on Avara's arm. "We did it," he said, a note of relief in his voice. "The Keystone's safe." She stared down at the shimmering crystal. A wave of complex emotions swept through her, triumph at reclaiming her people's artifact, gratitude that Cole had fought beside her, and an unsteady, growing sense that she had crossed an invisible line she could never recross. "Yes," she breathed, "but what it reveals, we're only beginning to understand." They boarded the ship, engine thrusters kicking up red dust all around them. Clutching the keystone, Avara knew their mission was far from over. If the legends were true, the relic's greatest power wasn't just its synergy imprint, but the ways it could reforge the legacy of the Viren and potentially reshape the galaxy's understanding of lineage altogether. As the frigate broke atmosphere, she glanced at Cole, heart quickening with a new kind of apprehension. She remembered the look he'd given her in the heat of battle, an unspoken promise that he'd stand by her side no matter the cost. And she found that part of her wanted him there, even though every tradition of her upbringing told her to stand separate, proud, and above lesser lineages. Not so lesser anymore, she thought. Perhaps Cole Everhart was already changing her more than the Keystone could. The Talara's wing completed its jump back to Heliac Station, and Avara Stormborn felt her pulse quicken. Though the corridors aboard the Concorde frigate were as utilitarian as ever, harsh lighting, reinforced metal floors, her mind was worlds away, already picturing the grand marble halls and ornate columns of the Viren embassy. The Keystone relic rested in a protective case at her hip, but its presence had not been the only thing stirring strange sensations in her over the past few days. Ever since the battle on Calyx Verge, a subtle yet persistent dizziness and an unfamiliar tension in her core had plagued her. At first, she blamed exhaustion or the residual stress of synergy surges. Now a faint inkling suggested something more profound. Cole Everhart walked beside her, his gaze flicking over the activity in the frigate's docking bay. He had proven invaluable during the assault on the ruined crown, and they had developed a silent efficiency in combat. Yet once the mission ended, that unspoken bond had revealed itself in other ways. She remembered the night before they broke orbit, how she'd felt his presence outside her temporary cabin, how her pulse had hammered when he finally entered, and they exchanged words that lingered at the edge of flirtation, words that carried unspoken possibilities she dared not fully examine. Their arrival protocol was brief. Captain Raoul transferred authority of the Keystone relic to Avara, who had the rightful bloodline to safeguard it until the Council of Elders could examine it. Cole's official role ended there, yet he refused to leave her side, citing personal interest in the artifact's fate. Avara wondered if there was more to it than that. At every moment she caught him glancing her way, not in challenge but in silent camaraderie, a sense of shared fate. The station's docking officer confirmed their clearance, and moments later Avara found herself stepping back onto Heliac Station's pristine concourse. Ornate pillars soared overhead, each adorned with carved images of Viren heroes. The lingering sense of exotic spices wafted from nearby trade kiosks, mixing with the crisp air pumped through the station's life support systems. Viren nobles in resplendent robes glided by, some casting curious or disapproving looks at the sight of a highborn lady returning arm in arm with a human operative. Avara caught Cole returning those stares with cool composure, as though he welcomed the scrutiny. She turned away, both grateful for his unwavering confidence and uneasy about the scandalized whispers she could practically feel swirling around them. This was not how she had ever imagined returning to her home territory. Half limping from a battle, an ancient relic at her waist, and an outsider by her side who somehow felt indispensable. She paused at the embassy gates, massive gilded doors engraved with the crest of House Stormborn. Two guards stood at attention, halberds gleaming in the artificial daylight. They recognized her immediately, eyes widening as they took in the relic she carried, in the presence of a human in her entourage. One guard raised a communicator to announce her arrival. "Welcome home, Lady Stormborn," he said, voice reverent yet tinged with apprehension. "The Council of Elders has been awaiting your report, and your father, the Grand Lord, has instructed us to bring you before him the moment you return." She merely nodded, choosing not to parse the undertone of warning in his words. With Cole at her side, she stepped through the embassy doors, inhaling the scent of polished stone. She steeled herself for the confrontation ahead. The keystone might be the key to revitalizing Viren heritage, or it might spark a schism if the council clung to old prejudices. Little did she know that the artifact's revelations were nothing compared to what was unfolding within her own body. The grand reception hall of the Viren embassy was abuzz with hushed excitement. Counselors wearing sweeping robes clustered in small groups, exchanging rapid whispers. Their collective attention locked on Avara as she marched in, keystone relic in hand. At the center of the polished floor, beneath an elaborate chandelier of prism crystals, stood Chancellor Moran and three senior council members. Their posture stiffened, and all conversation ceased when Avara and Cole approached. "Avara Stormborn," the Chancellor began in a formal tone, "we received your transmissions. You have recovered the keystone." His gaze flicked to Cole. "Your collaborator is most welcome, I suppose, for assisting in this delicate matter." Avara suppressed a surge of annoyance at the dismissive phrasing. "Operative Everhart's cooperation was essential, Chancellor. Without him, I would not have succeeded. The relic was nearly claimed by off-world raiders." Moran gave a slight nod. "The Council appreciates any who uphold the Viren legacy." His gaze lingered on Cole's uniform and lack of ceremonial flair. "However, we must complete our formal assessment. The keystone relic is to be sequestered in the Great Archive for examination." Cole shifted, crossing his arms. "With respect, Chancellor, do you realize the significance of what Avara found? This isn't just a historical trophy. We suspect it holds advanced synergy mapping, possibly explaining how Viren bloodlines function." A ripple of murmurs coursed through the gathered counselors. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. But before he could respond, Grand Lord Arius Stormborn strode into the hall. Tall and regal, with silver hair bound in a jeweled circlet, he carried himself with the effortless authority of the old guard. His sharp gaze pinned Avera in place. "Daughter," he said, voice reverberating in the high-ceilinged hall, "we have much to discuss. Come." He turned on his heel and headed for a side corridor without waiting for a response. Avara cast a fleeting look at Cole, then followed her father. The corridor led to a private antechamber lined with tapestries depicting House Stormborn's illustrious deeds, the forging of alliances, the crowning of kings, the subduing of rogue Viren clans. This was a place steeped in familial prestige. She felt the weight of that heritage in every step. "I'm told you fought side by side with this human," Arius said once they were alone. "That you allowed him entry into sacred ruins meant only for our kind." She met his steely gaze. "Father, the raiders nearly took the keystone. We had no choice. If not for Cole, I might not be standing here." Arius's jaw tightened. "You place too much faith in an outsider. Our bloodlines are what keep the synergy stable. Another species could never understand or protect it the way we can." Avara's temper flared, fueled by the memory of Cole's courage. He understood enough to risk his life, and he's proven that humans are not as inferior as we once believed. Perhaps you should see what the keystone has revealed. Arius hesitated, eyes flicking to the relic at her side. He could not deny House Stormborn's responsibility for protecting it, nor could he ignore her argument. His posture softened slightly. "Show me then," he said, voice low. "Though I warn you, the council will question the chain of custody. They value purity above all else." Avara swallowed hard, recalling the strange sensations she'd experienced of late. Sensations that, if she were honest, pointed to an even bigger challenge to Viren notions of purity. She prayed for the courage to face what lay ahead. The Keystone's mysteries, the council's scrutiny, and the truth she suspected was growing within her. Something that would shatter her people's old assumptions about bloodlines forever. The private examination chamber lay in a wing of the embassy rarely visited by outsiders. Soft, ambient lights shone on frosted glass shelves holding numerous ancient Viren artifacts. It was here that the keystone would be analyzed under the supervision of Chief Gene Curator Ishera, a reserved figure whose stooped posture belied a razor-sharp intellect. She regarded Avara, Cole, and Grand Lord Arius with penetrating eyes as they arrived. "Place the relic on the scanning pedestal," Ishera instructed, voice echoing slightly in the spacious room. "We must begin the synergy imprint analysis immediately." Avara carefully set the keystone on the pedestal's center. As soon as her hand withdrew, the artifact began to glow, filaments of light shifting like a living tapestry beneath its crystal surface. Everyone took a step back. Even Cole, who had seen the relic activate in the ruined crown, looked taken aback by the intensity of its energy. Ishera busied herself at a holographic console, initiating a sequence of scans. As complex streams of data scrolled across the display, a pattern began to emerge. A spiraling helix of synergy markers, layered with genetic sequences that pulsed in vibrant hues. Avara's heart beat faster. She sensed the same resonance as she had on Calyx's verge, the relic responding to her presence. "The genealogical fractals are extraordinary," murmured Ishera, her brow furrowing. "This relic appears capable of reading and even influencing Viren bloodlines. House Stormborn's imprint is particularly strong within it." She paused, turning her gaze to Avara. "My lady, it's as though the keystone is seeking full synchronization with you." Grand Lord Arius surveyed the projection, his face revealing conflicting emotions. "So the stories were true," he said quietly. "Our ancestors preserved this relic to safeguard the purity of our lineage. It was said to hold the secrets of controlling synergy flow across generations." Cole's expression hardened. "Or maybe it was meant to guide you to evolve, not to remain stagnant." Arius shot him a glare, but Ishera coughed politely before tension could escalate. She tapped another command, and fresh data lit the display, data that made Avara's stomach lurch. It was a reading of synergy alignment, not just from the relic, but from her own physiology. The result showed a second synergy pattern entwined with her own. I, I don't understand," Avara whispered, blinking in disbelief. "That secondary line, it's human, or partially human." Ishera's fingers hovered over the controls. "Yes, Lady Stormborn, my preliminary reading indicates a fetal synergy signature." Her tone was carefully measured, but her eyes flicked from Avara to Cole. "One that is half Viren, half something else." Silence flooded the chamber. Avara felt the floor tilt beneath her mind reeling with the realization. All the dizziness, the strange sensations, it wasn't just post-battle exhaustion. She was carrying a child. More than that, she was carrying a hybrid child, made possible by her encounter with Cole Everhart. She looked at him, and the shock on his face matched hers. Then came the flash of protectiveness in his eyes, tempered by wonder. But Grand Lord Arius was less awed than furious. He stepped forward, fists clenched. "How dare you?" he began, voice seething. "This is an abomination against our centuries of bloodline curation." Cole moved protectively closer to Avara. "With respect, my lord, it's hardly an abomination. It's just biology, a natural outcome when two consenting adults—" Arius cut him off with a heated glare. "House Stormborn stands for purity. Do you realize the scandal this will cause? The synergy patterns. They could destabilize if the council sees this as contamination." Avara's hands trembled. Though she had resolved her own pride regarding Cole's lesser status on Calyx's verge, she had never imagined bearing his child. Yet the synergy lines displayed on the console showed no signs of destabilization. On the contrary, they glowed with potent vitality, the relic's flicker intensifying, as though it recognized a new form of potential in this union. Ishera cleared her throat softly. "My lord, the data suggests the synergy is actually strengthening around Lady Stormborn. If anything, it appears the child's hybrid nature is enhancing certain latent channels." A cold hush followed. Avara's heart pounded as she faced her father. She saw the warring emotions in his eyes. Fear for the break in tradition, horror at the potential backlash from conservative council members, and maybe a sliver of awe at the power radiating from the readouts. Her voice wavered, but she forced the words out. Father, we cannot hide from this. The keystone has shown us something greater than we ever imagined. Our bloodlines aren't threatened. They're evolving. That evening, an emergency session convened in the embassy's Grand Council Hall. Elaborate banners draped from high pillars, and the lighting was subdued, giving the gathering a somber tone. Avara sat at the center of a long table, flanked by Cole and Grand Lord Arius. Across from them sat the Chancellor and other council figures. Whispers fluttered among the junior counselors, who frequently stole glances at the readouts as Shara had prepared. This is unprecedented, declared Counselor Bryden, a staunch traditionalist whose robe was embroidered with the insignia of his ancient house. We cannot ignore that Lady Stormborn has conceived a child with the human. For centuries, we have carefully preserved the purity of Viren synergy lines. The notion that we allow other species into that lineage is unthinkable. Another council member, Counselor Zara, folded her hands calmly. And yet, the synergy data suggests no harm is done. Rather, the opposite. The child's energies appear to magnify Viren synergy channels. She gestured to Ashera's display, which hovered holographically above the table. See here. The predicted synergy potential is higher than any on record. Chancellor Moran rubbed his temples. We stand at a crossroads. If this child's birth is truly an enhancement rather than a corruption, we must consider broader implications. Will more Viren human unions emerge? What does this mean for the future of our noble houses? Cole finally spoke up, voice steady, but Avara sensed the tension beneath his composure. I'm not here to tear down your traditions, but I've seen my share of conflicts among different species. Whenever we label something impure or lesser, we cut ourselves off from growth. He inclined his head toward Avara. This happened because we fought side by side, lived side by side, and learned from each other. Maybe that's not something to fear. Avara felt a surge of gratitude toward him. She mustered her own courage and fixed her gaze on the counselors. The Keystone's revelations are undeniable. Our ancestors wielded synergy to adapt and strengthen. They didn't remain stagnant. They built alliances, explored. Perhaps the relic's purpose all along was to guide us toward a new phase of evolution. Counselor Bryden's scowl deepened. Or it could be a Trojan horse. You forget that we alone hold rightful stewardship of synergy, Lady Stormborn. Intermixing with an untested species could compromise thousands of years of bloodline refinement. A murmur of mixed agreement and dissent rippled around the table. Grand Lord Arius, who had been silent throughout the session, finally rose. He placed his hands on the polished surface, and the room fell quiet. I have seen the data, he said in a measured tone, and I have spoken with our gene curator. This child, my grandchild, appears healthy, with synergy potential that may eclipse many existing lines. If we reject what the relic is telling us, we risk clinging to a tradition that might be outmoded. Avara felt tears burn at the corners of her eyes, relief mingling with fear. Her father had not accepted everything readily, yet he now spoke in their defense, perhaps more out of paternal instinct than progressive conviction. But it was enough. In the interim, Arius continued, the child's development must be monitored, and I propose that we keep this matter within the council until the birth. We owe it to the entire Viren people to avoid panic or misinformation. Silence followed. Then, Chancellor Moran issued a slow nod. Agreed. This matter is too delicate to make public without thorough understanding. But we must proceed with care. If the Synergy Child truly heralds a transformation of our people, the repercussions will be immense. Avara squeezed Cole's hand under the table, her heart pounding. She knew they had fought a battle on Calyx's verge to claim the Keystone, but this was a far greater fight, the fight for acceptance of what they had created together. And though neither fully grasped the magnitude, the synergy lines in her belly said it would reshape them all. The following weeks were a blur of medical examinations and social turmoil. Avara found herself sequestered in a private suite within the embassy, one guarded not by her father's trusted knights, but by a rotating detail of council-sanctioned wardens. Ostensibly, this was for her safety, concerned that zealots or conservative nobles might attempt something drastic. Yet it also felt like a gilded cage, one that kept prying eyes away from her growing secret. Chief Gene Creator Ishera conducted daily synergy scans, monitoring the child's rapid development. Each test brought new revelations. The fetus displayed stronger vitals than expected, along with advanced synergy patterns that even the top minds had never witnessed. Meanwhile, Cole was allowed limited visitation, supervised by stoic guards. His presence during these sessions became Avara's lifeline, a reminder that she wasn't alone. On one such evening, Avara lay on a plush divan, her hand resting on her abdomen. She could feel the subtle pulses of energy within, tiny flutters that seemed to resonate with her own synergy in a comforting rhythm. When Cole was let in, she managed a small smile, though her eyes brimmed with exhaustion. "You're here," she said softly, relieved. He knelt beside her, face earnest in the lamp's warm glow. "Are they treating you well?" She shrugged. "I'm monitored every second, but otherwise unharmed. I suspect the council wants to keep me on display as they puzzle out whether this child is a blessing or a curse." A pause. "And you? Have they tried to pressure you?" Cole exhaled, raking a hand through his hair. "A few veiled threats, attempts to paint me as a manipulative outsider. But your father's word still carries weight, and he's insisted they treat me with respect. Still, there's tension. Some members demand my removal from Viren space." Avara's gaze dropped to her abdomen. She had always taken pride in her noble lineage, had once looked down on any who lacked it. Now the very child she carried was living proof that synergy could thrive beyond the limitations her society had set. "I never expected this," she whispered, voice trembling. "I mocked your pedigree when we first met, and yet our child might become the greatest synergy wielder of our time." A wry smile touched Cole's lips. "We humans don't have centuries of fancy bloodlines, but we've survived everything thrown at us. Maybe that's why Synergy recognized a kindred spark." He placed a gentle hand over hers, atop the soft curve of her stomach. She felt a stirring inside, like the child responded to his touch. For a moment, the quiet hum of synergy between them was so profound, it seemed to fill the room with a gentle glow. Just then, the door slid open and Ashera entered with fresh data pads. She paused at the scene, face unreadable, then stepped forward to display the latest results. "The synergy markers are increasing, Lady Stormborn. The child's growth is accelerated, as though it's drawing extra energy directly from the Keystone's imprint." She indicated lines of data, each one spiking higher than the day before. Avara's breath caught. The child was not just healthy, it was thriving beyond precedent. And with each passing day, the synergy lines enveloped father and mother both, forging a new bond that cut across lineage boundaries. She felt torn between awe and apprehension at the significance. If the council insisted on controlling or manipulating such power, how would they treat the child once it was born? It was in the early dawn cycle of Heliac Station, when the corridors were all but deserted, that whispers of conspiracy reached Avera's ears. She had woken from uneasy dreams to find her father standing at her bedside, a grave expression on his face. Guards outside the suite shifted nervously. "Avara," Grand Lord Arius began quietly, taking a seat in a carved chair beside her. "I have received word that certain council members plan to move against you and the child. They fear what a hybrid birth could mean for the stability of Viren governance." Her heart thudded. "Move against me? You can't mean they would harm the baby?" Arius's jaw tightened. "They speak of a containment protocol, possibly forcing you into deeper isolation or insisting on a termination if they believe the synergy disruption is too great a risk." Rage and fear surged in Avera's chest. She sat up, hands instinctively protecting her abdomen. "But the data shows the child is stable. There's no danger to the synergy lines." "I've argued that," Arius agreed, voice hoarse. "But fear is powerful, and the old ways run deep." He inclined his head. "We must not underestimate those who see a threat to tradition." Avara's mind spun. Every protective instinct roared that she needed to flee, to secure her child from those who would destroy the unknown out of fear. Yet fleeing meant leaving her home, her status, everything she had once cherished. It also meant trusting Cole and his human allies, an act that still felt surreal given her upbringing. She clenched her fists. "I won't let them do this, Father. I'll protect my child." Before Arius could respond, the door slid open again, admitting Cole along with two loyal Stormborn guards. Cole's expression radiated a controlled urgency. "We need to get you out of here," he said by way of greeting. "My intel says Counselor Bryden is mobilizing a private security force right now." Avara swallowed, glancing at her father. Arius offered a curt nod. "I can't stop them all, not without igniting a civil rift. If you remain, the Council may claim emergency powers to detain you. Leaving might be the only way." Her pulse hammered. This was it, the pivotal moment where the path of tradition ended and a new, uncertain road opened. She glanced around the suite, at the opulent carvings that once symbolized her pride as a high-born Viren. Then she looked to Cole, who had risked more than she could have fathomed to stand by her side. She rose, ignoring the twinge in her belly. "I'll go," she decided, voice trembling with a mix of fear and resolve. "I won't let them treat my child like a threat to be neutralized. If the synergy truly heralds a new chapter for our people, then we must survive to see it." Cole came to her side, gently helping her steady. "We have a ship ready. We'll move under the station's early dawn shift when traffic is minimal." He paused, meeting her gaze. "Are you sure, Avara?" She nodded, looking to her father one last time. "I have to protect this child, and maybe by doing so, I'll protect the future of the Viren." Arius's lips tightened, betraying a swirl of emotion behind his stoic mask. "Go then. I will do my best to delay the Council forces. But remember, you are still House Stormborn. No matter where you run, you carry our legacy, and now something more." The corridor beyond beckoned, quiet in the faux dawn. The synergy lines within Avara's body fluttered as though encouraging her onward, forging a path uncharted by centuries of tradition. Cole's steady arm guided her, and together they walked away from the security of her old life and toward a destiny neither fully understood. The next few days became a race through the star lanes, aboard a modest Concord courier ship that Cole had commandeered for their escape. It was hardly the luxurious craft Avara once believed her noble blood demanded, but she found it oddly comforting. A snug bunk, unadorned metal walls, and the faint hum of thrusters that reminded her of the calm efficiency Cole always radiated. They made a series of short jumps to avoid detection, docking only briefly at remote way stations to refuel and restock. During these layovers, Avara's condition progressed more swiftly than any normal Viren pregnancy. She awakened one morning to discover her belly noticeably rounded, a change that typically took months among her people. Strangely, she did not feel weak or burdened. Instead, her energy thrummed with a vibrant resonance. It was as though the synergy lines inside her had realigned to support the accelerated growth. Cole stayed by her side, helping her with tasks that left her winded, always ready with a supportive arm or a steadying hand. They eventually sought refuge on a fringe outpost called Verdanalis, a small orbital station favored by traders and explorers. Its corridors were cramped, its lodging sparse, yet it offered anonymity, with minimal docking regulations and a population too busy scraping a living to pay mind to rumors of a Viren human scandal. They secured a modest room in a corner of the station's residential block, where Avara could rest without constant surveillance. Here they made contact with a discreet Concord medic named Dr. Kelly Chen, an old ally of Cole's who asked few questions and provided advanced prenatal scanning equipment. Avara had been braced for the woman's shock upon learning the nature of the pregnancy, but Dr. Chen surprised her with compassion and fascination instead. "This is remarkable," Dr. Chen murmured, adjusting a handheld scanner across Avara's abdomen. The device projected a holographic image of the fetus, revealing a complex swirl of synergy lines interwoven with human genetics. "I've never seen a hybrid develop so seamlessly. You're carrying two synergy signatures." Cole, who stood behind her Chen, let out a soft breath. "You mean twins?" Avara's eyes widened as the separate pulses became clear in the display. Two distinct heartbeats, each swirling with a different hue of synergy. "That's impossible," she said, although her trembling voice betrayed her awe. Twins among the Viren were exceedingly rare, considered a potent omen in old legends. To have twins with a human father bordered on mythic. Dr. Chen smiled gently. "It's hardly impossible. In fact, they appear quite robust, each feeding off the synergy channels. That might explain why your pregnancy is accelerating. Two lives drawing energy from both you and what appears to be a lingering link to the Keystone's imprint." Avara's mind reeled, recalling the original prophecy around the relic, the notion that it could lead to a grand resurgence of synergy. For centuries, she had believed that only pure Viren bloodlines could harness that power. Yet here she was, bearing half-human offspring who might embody that synergy on a level never before recorded. What will the council say now, she thought. They had deemed a single hybrid child controversial enough. Twins would send them into a tailspin. She looked to Cole. Rather than fear, she saw joy and quiet determination in his face. He moved to her side and gently took her hand, lacing his fingers with hers. "We're in this together," he said, voice calm yet resolute. "Whatever they decide back home, we won't let anyone harm our children." Emotions welled up in Avara's chest, love, gratitude, and a guarded hope. Despite the dire circumstances, she felt more alive than ever, as though forging a bond that transcended species and tradition alike. The synergy lines in her belly pulsed in agreement, and she found herself smiling, even as tears slipped down her cheeks. Twins, two new lives bridging the divide she had once believed insurmountable. In that moment, she understood that her journey had crossed a threshold of no return. The fate of her people, her father's legacy, and perhaps even the broader galaxy now hinged on these unborn children. Two bright beacons of possibility in a universe weighed down by ancient prejudices. Looking back on this extraordinary journey, I'm filled with hope and admiration for Avara's courage and Cole's unwavering loyalty. Together, they shattered long-held biases, revealing that true strength springs from embracing differences rather than fearing them. Their children's birth symbolizes more than just a new branch of evolution. It stands for the possibility that mutual respect can conquer even the most stubborn traditions. In the end, what began as a clash of pride and skepticism evolved into a tapestry of shared values and groundbreaking discoveries. From hidden ruins to frantic flights across the stars, each challenge proved that cooperation and understanding transcend lineage. May their story inspire us all to look past our own barriers and welcome what lies beyond. Thank you for joining us on this remarkable adventure. If you've enjoyed the tale, please subscribe to our channel and share your thoughts below. Let's keep the discussion alive. Drop your comments and ideas so we can explore them together in future stories. Your voice matters, and we look forward to hearing it.